Coming up on this episode of NPS Now, 4-year-olds at Richard Bowling are learning to speak Chinese. Norfolk Technical Center's carpentry class worked on a special project, and Granby Elementary students enjoyed hands-on activities during their STEAM Day. Later in the show, we'll talk about some of the state's new math standards, plus Steve Seppmiller with sports. All that and more next on NPS Now. Hello and welcome to NPS Now, your source for news and information about Norfolk Public Schools. I'm your host, Karen Tanner. Pre-K students at Richard Bowling Elementary are spending part of their class time learning Mandarin thanks to a Chinese teacher from the Confucius Institute. 4 times a week, Ms. Zhang comes in for a brief lesson on greetings, numbers, phrases, and directions. These 4-year-olds have embraced both her and her language and are always eager to show off what they've learned.
They're so excited when she comes because it's always something new and challenging, and the way she interacts with them, she's warm, she's inviting, she gets on the floor, she doesn't want a chair set out for her, she wants to be on the floor with the kids. She puts gestures to everything so they retain it better. It is so age appropriate for teaching these youngsters her lessons and for their retention.
Oh, it's amazing. Ms. Young comes in and they always greet her ni hao. Now she taught me point to my knee, so I remember. So she interacts with them saying ni hao. They come in, they come to the carpet, and she's like one of the faculty here. She's a beautiful addition, and the children love her.
They greet me, use Chinese words. So when they say ni hao to me, I'm really excited. I feel, I teach them and they got it. I think both of us can learn something from each other. That's the important thing. And I'm very glad to here and teach Chinese, and I can learn culture from here, and I also bring some Chinese culture to them. That's really good.
Artists from the Wolf Trap Institute spent 2 weeks in 12 of our schools showing pre-K students and teachers how the arts can help with learning. Each day, the teaching artists would go through a lesson using music, dance, and props to actively engage the children. This interactive instruction also gave the classroom teachers ideas to make their own lessons more fun and exciting for the students.
It's been so wonderful. They're teaching us a lot of transition songs and also some different strategies for using the arts to develop our objectives that we're teaching. They asked what we were teaching, and we gave them the objectives, and she was able to create songs and new ways of approaching those objectives, which is really stimulating their problem solving and critical thinking skills. So it's been real helpful to me.
Our goal is to really bring the arts to bring STEM alive in the classroom. So help teachers learn how they can use the arts to reach young children and to bring the STEM concepts, math, science, engineering, technology alive for young children. When we use the arts to engage them, they really blossom, they really come alive, they interact, they engage, they learn.
After a year off, Norfolk Technical Center's carpentry class is back in full force. These carpentry students have partnered with the Friends of the Norfolk Public Library to build 20 free little libraries that will be distributed throughout the city. This valuable opportunity not only enables these students to hone their skills, but it also provides a chance for them to give back to the community.
It gives them the experience to build structures and how to weatherproof and put in doors and hardware, and it hits a lot of the competencies that VDOE covers for our kids, and also gets them in the community, involved with community partners. And so that partnership with the library and the schools, and then our school as well, it's just a cool experience for the kids to be a part of.
It was a long process, but it was kind of easy when you get the hang of it. But we had to do a lot of cutting. Carpentry is like a natural thing to me. So like I grew up doing it. I grew up building stuff. I want to keep on pursuing that and going to my own business. It's a good thing. Like it makes me feel good about myself.
Something that we've done is actually being made public. Last year, not everyone even knew carpentry was in this school. This is its first year back in action. And now we're actually doing something that's going to be out in public. It's great.
It feels really great. You get to learn something new, new experiences. I actually learned a few stuff I didn't know about, like some tools I didn't even know existed. So it's really exciting, like when you get to work with these kinds of tools. Like you get a first hands-on experience, which is like prepares you for the future.
In addition to outstanding courses, Norfolk Technical Center also holds an annual college and career fair for all of its students. This year's fair featured over 40 vendors from universities, the military, and various state and city departments. The fair provides juniors and seniors with the opportunity to seek higher education and training, and even the ability to get started on a career right after graduation from high school. Students at Granby Elementary experience science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math all day long during their annual STEAM Day. Instead of a regular science fair, these students enjoy coding and robotics, various STEAM stations in the gym, and a drone demonstration. Everyone, including board members who were on hand to judge the science fair projects, saw the benefits of students learning while having fun.
They absolutely love it. They love science. I make it engaging and hands-on for them, and it's an experience that they don't usually forget, and they come back the next year wanting more, and they get to see what other students are doing. They get to see everyone's display boards, and they get to actually do hands-on activities with their peers around them. So it's fun for them, they enjoy it, and they're learning at the same time.
Well, I think it gets them excited about science, and it makes them understand what's happening around them, and they're learning to ask why questions about what's happening in the world that's around them. And so it's very, very important, and they're all very excited. It gets them excited about learning.
Administrators from around the district gathered together to celebrate and focus on goals at the Mid-Year Leadership Institute. The agenda included a motivational speech by Superintendent Dr. Melinda Boone, updates on everyone's progress, and performances by Booker T. Washington's cheerleaders and Norview High School's award-winning NJROTC. One of the highlights of the morning was a team activity that involved scanning codes to see videos featuring Smarty Goals of every school and department in Norfolk Public Schools.
Oh, the technology was awesome. Being able to see other videos and having everybody collectively put their work together on a page, and for us to be able to take our phones and just simply, look and view. I think it's fantastic. That's the best way to see things. It's so immediate for us.
Oh, I think it's a great asset because we don't always get to see everything that everybody does, and this allows us the opportunity to look even off school hours. It's always good to hear other ideas from other schools, see what they're doing, see what we can tweak and make our own.
I think it's great. I encourage the use of technology. It was great to see the QR codes and people able to scan them on their phones and watch the different staff members' videos. That was very, very intuitive, and I think the activities are very, very much fun. Everybody was engaged, and they were using their phones and the data, so that was very, very cool.
Students at Tidewater Park were the recipients of some goodwill, courtesy of Norfolk Southern.
That's really important to Norfolk Southern is giving back to the community. And so today we had the privilege and honor of reading to the students here and just spending time helping to engage in the community and help them learn through reading and different books. I think it's important to show how much the community is involved in what we do on a day-to-day basis, but also giving back because they do so much for us as a company.
Ms. Gala and a few third graders also spent time reading The Magic School Bus.
They taught me a lot. I had no idea, and they were teaching me of different animals that were fossils in the book, and I think that they really enjoyed it. It was fun to see them stomp around, get up and participate in some of the wording and vocabulary that they learned. They're just so intelligent.
Ruffner Academy's students, parents, and supporters enjoyed an evening of jazz with Norfolk State University's Jazz Ensemble. The concert served as a fundraiser, and with the help of the community, the event raised over $1,300 for Ruffner's music program. If you have any great story ideas or events happening at your school, please be sure to email us at npsnews@npsk12.com. Stay tuned for more NPS Now.
Welcome back to NPS Now. I'm Steve Setmiller, Senior Coordinator of Athletics. Today in this studio, we have a special guest from Old Dominion University, Ragean Hill. Welcome. And we're here to talk a little bit about NCAA eligibility for our student athletes. So before we get into that, Ragean, tell us a little bit about what you do at Old Dominion, where you're from, so our viewers know.
Okay, I'm the Senior Women Administrator for Old Dominion Athletic Department, so that's the highest ranking female in the athletic department. I oversee our academic student athlete services and student athlete development programming. I also am the Deputy Title IX Coordinator for the athletic department, and I supervise 4 of our teams currently, and then helped with the bringing on of our new volleyball coach, Fred Chow, to the program.
Okay, well, a lot of responsibilities.
Yes,
so,
a lot of different hats.
We want to talk about, we just had our National Signing Day, and some of our student athletes were able to sign national letter of intent to a university to play a sport. And this is for people down the road, because we have other student athletes that are getting in line for academic and athletic success. So let's briefly talk about eligibility for a high school student to obtain a college scholarship.
So for the Division I level, and that's where we're at Old Dominion, you have to, one, have the 16 core courses. There's a certain amount of courses that will be locked in between the freshman and into the junior year, which are 10 core courses, 7 of them that have to come from the math, science, and reading area, or English. The other 10 can be some of those social science classes, psychology, social studies, just trying to think, Spanish, those type of courses. Those are locked in, and those are your highest GPA classes, so A, Bs. We'll try to lock those in. Once those are locked in, you can't make any changes to those. And then in your senior year, finishing up the remaining 6 core courses, or you may have more than that after your junior year to get that done. So again, it's going to be the 16 core courses, 10 courses that'll get locked into the system, 7 of them coming from math, science, and the reading area, English. And then it has to have the GPA. So 2.3 is our minimum GPA for the NCAA. But again, the higher the GPA, the lower the test score can be. The higher the test score, the lower the GPA can be.
Okay.
And so you have to match up on the sliding scale.
All right, so the important thing here for people to know that when you walk in as a freshman, you need to start taking classes, those core classes, day one.
Correct. It's not, let's just wait till our sophomore or junior year to get started. It's even, I mean, just in academics alone, you can't slack that first year, because what you lock in from that first year could affect you down the road. So it's very important that going into your freshman year, that you're staying up with your grades, that nothing's fallen to the wayside, and then you're also taking the core courses that are necessary. So I always tell parents, you need to be in the room with your student when they're getting ready to sign up for those courses, to make sure that they're going to be on track to have what they need when it's time to graduate.
Okay. So you mentioned test scores, and we have the ACT and the SAT. So from experience, which test should they take? Should they take both?
So I was a former student athlete myself. I ran track in college, but I was not a great ACT taker. So I took the SAT, and I took it as many times as I was afforded to. And that became the test that I took. But I always recommend to families when they come in on recruiting visits, take both tests. You may do better on one than the other, and as an institution, one, we can use both of those tests, figuring out which one's higher, but also the NCAA will use both tests, and you can super score. So the highest marks you get in, let's say you take the SAT twice, the highest reading can be matched with your highest math. And then same with the ACT, there's 4 categories. You take all 4 categories, add them together for your composite sum, and then you get your ACT score, and that can match up.
Okay, so just what kind of range are we looking at? What's the minimal at an SAT, ACT to the obviously the max?
So with the 2-3, you're going to end up in the 930 range, and right now I'm going off the top of my head, but the highest, I mean, you could have a 3.0 and go way down to the bottom scale, about a 700, but again, you have to think about entrance to the university. So you have two entities. You have to become a Division I qualifier, but then you also have to be admitted to your institution. So you're tracking both ways. Do I have the sliding scale for the NCAA, but do I also have the admission standards for the institution that I'm going to?
Okay.
And so.
All right. So let's talk about, you're talking GPA. Does a weighted GPA, if a student is taking the AP, the honor courses, how does that assist?
So if a student is enrolled in AP or honors courses, as long as those courses are recognized by the NCAA on their list of approved core courses, then they can be weighted at a higher scale. So if an A for an AP course is 5 points, or on a 4.0 scale at 5, then you can use that. But if the high school does not have that information into the NCAA of their AP courses being weighted higher, then we're taking the true GPA. So 4.0 scale, 4 for an A, 3 for a B, 2 for a C, 1 for a D, and then 0 for an F.
Okay. All right. So I mean, you mentioned the NCAA. At what point during the high school career should an athlete go ahead and begin to complete the eligibility process, and then obviously the institution will be down, their senior year, but how early should that start?
We always tell them at the end or the beginning of their junior year to go ahead and get registered. After that first semester of their junior year, go ahead and send a transcript in, because they can do a preliminary evaluation. So we have that spring semester of their junior year able to look at, as well as their next senior year, to make sure, can we add courses in to help the student athlete get to the 16 core courses. So applying and putting their app in the end of their sophomore year, and then sending a transcript in after that first semester of their junior year. Okay. And I would also say start taking the test around that time as well.
All right, that's good information.
Some students, I know counselors will say, well, go take a test and just get a benchmark where you're at. I personally don't recommend that, only because let's say a student goes in and they get an 850, and then they go and take it a second time, and now they get a 1200. That may trigger something with the SAT or the ACT, depending on which test you're taking, and you may have to do another test to prove that the score matches to that higher score that you received. So it's always, when you're going in, you need to study for it, you need to be prepared. Don't take it a night after a football game or a basketball game or whatever you got going on, and really go in there and try the first time around. Now, it's different if they take it, let's say, that 9th grade year, and then they don't take it again until their 11th grade year. We can see learning over time, core courses that they've taken, and why that score would go up. But if they're taking their test in their junior year, and let's say they take it in August, and they just go in and take that test, and then they go back in May, and they take it after studying and everything else, and there's a huge jump, that's too short of a time. Okay. So we need to make sure that we're giving them the right information.
Right. So you mentioned, I mean, Old Dominion's Division I. There are other levels, Division II, Division III, and there's even the junior college level, and we see a lot of our student athletes going that route. And I know you work Division I, but if you could briefly touch some differences on 2 and 3 and even the JUCO level.
So for Division II, it's going to be the 2.0 sliding scale to the highest test score you can receive. And again, it's basically Division II rules, or the old Division I rules. They're always, in a sense, one step behind. Still the 16 core courses, but there's nothing being locked in that regard. The junior college route, that's going to be harder for a student to come out of that. Typically, we want 3 consecutive semesters at the junior college that they're attending, and a lot of times they will dance around or go from junior college to junior college. Having worked in the SEC before, it has to be 3 consecutive semesters at the same institution if they want to transfer into an SEC school. Big 12, you can bounce around and do that. In Conference USA, you can bounce around and have different, but you have to make sure you're 3 consecutive terms full time. Okay. I should say it that way. And then you have to have a 2.5 GPA. You have to have your transferable math, 2 transferable English, a science with a lab. We can only count 2 PE credit, and then 48 transferable, or at least hit the 40% for whatever degree you're going into. So you see there's a lot of different things you have to do, whereas high school, get the GPA and meet the sliding scale, get admitted into your institution. So I always tell them, if you can do it right the first time, that's going to fare better for you. But I understand there are some students that are not recruited right away out of high school and they have to go the junior college route, but they have to understand there's still expectations at that level in order to get to the Division I. Now, if you're a qualifier and you go the junior college route and you have your 12 hours per that semester, it makes it easier. You just still have to have that 2.5 GPA and have those transfers come in, transferable hours come in, but you don't have that full criteria if you're a non-qualifier. What I listed was for all non-qualifiers.
Gotcha. All right, so let's talk about the recruiting process. And a lot of times we see today, hey, my 7th grader was offered a scholarship to whatever school. How true is that, and does it happen? And what should parents think about that?
You're not seeing it as often anymore, just because our recruiting rules have changed a bit and how late we're able to go after students, or our coaches can have contact with recruits and everything else. My thing is, until you sign on that dotted line that you're officially signed into the institution, because coaches could leave also. Sure. You have a 7th grader and you're waiting all the way till their senior year to go on their official signing day. That coach may already be at another institution, and the school does not have to validate that scholarship, especially if nothing has been signed at that moment. So I always tell parents, just be a little cautious. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And really, when they get to their junior and senior year, that's when you're going to know when that signing period is going to come. We have the early one, which is in December, and then we have the true one, which is in February, which is the first Wednesday of February of the new year.
Okay. So for parents and students, where should they go to obtain this information now?
Yes, they can go to the NCAA Eligibility Center. That's where they can log in for everything. They have there are tools for them to click into, so they can even grade themselves where they're at GPA-wise, what they would need for a test score. So all that information is at the NCAA Eligibility Center.com, and they can sign up, get everything that they need. That's where we push students to as well. To make sure if we're not available and they are in the 9th or 10th grade and they just need information before they get started for their high school years, that's where they can go to get all that info.
Okay. Well, Ragean, a lot of good information. We could talk a long time about recruiting and NCAA. So appreciate you coming down here, and we look forward to seeing you out and around the schools. Maybe.
Great, yes, happy to.
More NPS Now after this.
Welcome back to NPS Now. With me today is Rhonda White. She is a math coordinator, and she's going to be here to talk about the new math standards. Welcome to NPS Now.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on the show. As a parent of a Norfolk student, I'm pretty interested to see what these changes are. I understand there's going to be changes for grades K through 12. So what's going to be some of the similarities and differences between the old math standards and the new math standards?
Well, basically, the new standards are under the same guiding ideas as the older standards. So we're still trying to make sure that we have our students leaving us that are problem solvers, that can communicate their ideas, they can make connections, they can represent, they can reason. The 5 process goals of Virginia mathematics, they're still guiding what we do. There have been some changes. VDOE, they had stakeholders, they had math teachers, they had specialists. They got together and they looked at the older standards and they looked for things that were not consistent. So they looked for things that were either developmentally seeming inappropriate. They looked for places where vocabulary was different from grade to grade, and they looked at the progression of skills. And using lots of research and lots of feedback, they really clarified what we want our teachers to have our students doing in classrooms.
So how will this new standards affect instruction in the classroom?
Well, along with looking at the things that the stakeholders said, VDOE also really referenced a body of work from our National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And this book, Principles to Actions, really looked at classrooms all across the country, and it outlined 8 different practices that great classrooms have going on and great math classrooms have going on. And one of those is helping students to really understand concepts and be able to be procedurally fluent. So going from concrete to abstract.
So what does CRA, and you're going to discuss that, what does that look like?
So going from that concrete to that abstract, sometimes we call that concrete representation abstract. Basically, it's going from a very hands-on way at mathematics to the more abstract and practical problems. For example, in elementary, if a child were learning to add sets, if they were adding 4 and 5. So first they may have the base 10 blocks or bears, then their teacher may show them how to model and draw that on paper, and eventually using the symbols. In upper mathematics or in upper elementary mathematics, you may have students learning about fractions, so equivalent fractions. Well, that can be very abstract. So students may begin to use the fraction strips, or they may use a piece of technology, a website, or really engaging in more of hands-on if they need to, going to paper folding, and drawing it, and then eventually looking at it 1/2, well, that really does equal 4/8. So we're having those experiences more and more in our classrooms.
How does this relate to number sense?
Well, number sense, that's our thing. So if you have this foundational understanding of how numbers behave, then you have a better chance of being able to practice what we call that computational fluency. Again, we want them to be procedural as they go into higher mathematics. But this foundation is based on that hands-on introduction to different types of numbers, including integers. So in middle school, when they begin to look at positive and negative numbers, they can even do that using the CRA model, and they can look at what happens when you add positive numbers and negative numbers in a hands-on way, and then do it in a more conceptual way, move into that procedural manner.
What happens when students don't have good number sense? What do you do for them?
So a lot of times people look at CRA as a method to use as an intervention. So if we have to go back and really reanalyze place value, for example, well, what does that 3 and 346 really look like? We may have to go back and pull out the base 10 models. Or several times when students are having that issue when they're having to regroup and they have to slash the number on the top. Well, what does that slash mean? What is that extra 1 when we carry a number over? What does that really mean? So when they're having these issues, we provide the intervention of CRA. A lot of times also you will see in the research that CRA is useful for students with disabilities, which is a group of students that we definitely are targeting and helping to improve in math.
There's some parents I know who are watching this and thinking, oh my goodness, are there any websites to help parents support their students with this information on the new standards?
Yes, one website that I will always recommend because we utilize it heavily as well is the Virginia Department of Education. So on VDOE, there are places where they directly tell you how our standards have changed from one grade to the next, from last year to this year. And last year was our transition year, and we heavily relied on the resources that VDOE provided to really guide us and help us to think about how the transition would affect our instruction. Also on VDOE, there is a whole page dedicated to the new platform that we're using in 4th grade, 5th grade, all the way up through Algebra 2 for SOL testing, and that's the Desmos calculator.
Oh, glad you brought that up. Tell us about Desmos and this new platform.
Well, what VDOE VDOE did is they looked across our state and they realized that there was a great inequity in access to the different types of calculators that students were using in mathematics. And so the Desmos website is free. And students are able to access it on their phones, on iPads. They're able to access it at school where they may have the web access. And then once they have it uploaded on their devices, they can then take that home and still have access at home, even if they don't have internet access.
You know, why is it important and what's the purpose of Desmos?
So it's just a different way to, whether you're using the 4-function calculator or the graphing calculator, to put those numbers in there and make sense of it. However, you still have to have the understanding of the mathematics.
So are there any events coming up now or recently or in the future?
Well, actually, there are always things going on in schools, and that's
Great.
what's so exciting here in Norfolk. We've had schools that have had STEM days in which they've had events. For example, at Granby Elementary, they just had a STEM day, and they were able to pull in people from the community to come in and do activities. They were able to have parents to come in. They were able to do things inside and outside of the school that dealt with measurement, that dealt with all types of mathematics, and pulled in science as well. In addition, there are schools such as Crossroads. They just had a STEM day with over 200 participants there, pulling in parents and students and engaging them in how to make mathematics more practical. When we think in terms of the community, ODU is about to have an ODU Computer Science and Mathematics Day in March, as well as we have a Math Fest here in Norfolk.
Math 24.
And Math 24, of course, April, that's definitely coming up for Math Month. So all of these things are coming up, and it's just a way to help our students to just stay engaged in mathematics.
Great. Thank you for coming on the show today, and I bet some parents are going to go to that website.
Yes, thank you.
To get more information. So thank you for sharing this information this morning.
Absolutely, thank you.
And we want to thank you for watching NPS Now. It airs weekly on WNPS, Channel 47, or you can view us online at www.npsk12.com. If you have any great story ideas or events happening at your school, email us at nps_news@npsk12.com. Again, we want to thank you for watching NPS Now.